Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Unfound Podcast channel on YouTube. I am Unfound's host, Ed Dentzel. Before I get started, please consider subscribing to this channel if you're not yet a subscriber. Like this video, maybe you just want to wait to the end for your own integrity, but you're going to like this video, so just give it a like. You can do so now. We understand. And if you'd like to go that one step farther or further, maybe consider joining this channel and get some special stuff when you do, and that is right below this video with the join button. As the title says, this is a map analysis for the disappearance of Mary Cox. This is an episode that came out on November 4th of 2022. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at where she was living, where she was probably going. We're going to take a look at where the store is, where her card was used, and then we are going to take a look at where her purse was allegedly found. So looking at the screen, this 100 Vivian Drive, that is where she was living. And then over here, this Chum's Discount Tobacco Store. Should say there are a couple different places she could have been going for cigarettes that what we might call within walking distance, even for a person like Mary who was having some breathing problems. There were a few different places that she could be going, but Connie, her daughter, who was the guest for the episode, really believes that this is the place. And so, looking at that, maybe if I do this, and it gets really big there, look at that, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You can see that that walk is only 0.7 of a mile, so just a little over a half mile one way. Of course, going back and forth, it would end up being about a mile and a half. And Mary had done this before. She had done this often. She was a smoker. So we have to believe this is a very common walk for her, certainly within her physical abilities. Certainly. Now, if I were to show you, I'm not going to do that, but just saying, if we were to look at some of the other places in the area that sold cigarettes at the time, maybe they're still even open to this day. Of course, there are farther away, and we could get to a point where we would start questioning whether she could walk to one of those places and back. But at a mile and a half, I get the impression from Connie, and I think she left the impression in the interview, that a mile and a half was certainly within her mother's capability, even though she was having some breathing problems. And we should remember that even if she did have these issues, she was 54, she wasn't 84. So that has to be figuring into it. So that is all the farther she had to go, seemingly, if she was going here. Just 0.7 a mile, 13 minutes. So she could be there and back half hour, maybe a little longer if she's walking a little more slowly than what Google might think the average person does. But certainly less than an hour. Of course, unless she ran into somebody. So now I'm going to be adding in the next location, and that is Dover Crossing Road. And that is down here, and this is where that Kroger is. And we have to remember that this Kroger in that area, that her card was not used there until at least, I think it was actually over a year later. It was not used for a spectacular amount of money. It was only under $5, but it was down here. So the way I look at it, of course, we do not suspect that it was Mary who was using that discount card. And I want to make clear this was not a credit card or an ATM card or anything like that. It was a discount card. So to pay, you still have to have cash or some sort of ATM or credit card. And then using this other card, you get some sort of discount. We know many different chains out there, convenience stores, grocery stores, gas stations, use these things to build customer loyalty. And that's what this card was. It was for Kroger's, which is a company that I'm very familiar with. So looking at this, and given that it was, now we're once again going back thinking about Mary's abilities, I don't know if this would have been the grocery store that she would have shopped at anyway. Because what we're seeing here, and maybe we want to take chums out of there now. 1.7 miles, 33 minutes. We have to remember she's not going to a convenience store. She would be going to a grocery store. And so she would have bags and things. Could a woman of her ability with her problems walk down there and then carry groceries back? It starts to, that becomes, I think, a little questionable to me. So, looking at this, and I'll zoom back in so you can see this. And so you can see the time. 33 minutes, 1.7 miles, so 3.5 miles round trip. Easily would take over an hour, but you add in the weight that she would be carrying. Unless somebody was driving her down there, of course, before she went missing, to shop there, this doesn't seem like the place that she would have done her grocery shopping anyway. Unless she was getting a ride from one of the other people who worked there, management, taxi, or maybe this Sue Smith person who we talked about in the interview. Just not sure about that. Or maybe there was, of course, we know that some people might just buy groceries locally, or it very well even could be, and this is not something that I did not ask Connie, could it be at this home where she was living that there was some sort of meal plan that went along with living there? As we know, many places like that have. So maybe that's a possibility as well. It just, given the distance, it just doesn't seem like this would have been the grocery store she would be at or she would go to unless she was getting a ride. But this, right down here at the bottom of the screen, down in this area, is where that Kroger's is or was. I don't know if it's still there or not. I think it is. So there we go, right down there on Dover Crossing Road. As you can see there, 33 minutes, 1.7 miles. Now I'm going to show you approximately where her purse was found. Now, as best as I could tell, this area, right, like I guess you might call it like a peninsula, even though it's technically not, but this area, I think right in here, is called Hilltop. The Hilltop area of Clarksville. And the reason I picked this up, this is called the Hilltop Market. So this area, I believe, is all called Hilltop. And the belief, the way Connie understand it, is that Mary's purse was found in the water in this area 2 weeks after Mary went missing by that fisherman. And as I tried to state in the episode, maybe you, of course, can figure this out for yourself. Of course, if Mary went into the water, just to zoom this out, if she did for some reason, and we can see, the river is really not that close. And I've already stated, going back up to the shopping part of this when I was bringing up the Kroger's, we established that was 1.7 miles. Well, it's at least that to the river. So could she have walked that? I think that's it's a really, really big question mark in my mind. So we have to start thinking about, it's not as easy just to say, well, you know what? She went into the water with her purse, and then somehow 2 weeks later, the purse got dislodged or something. It was floating down here, and this person picked it up. I don't think the answer is as clear-cut as that. Can certainly believe that she could have walked off. She had some mental issues. It seemed like she might have been a little depressed. She wanted to go to Florida, and instead her daughter and family were coming back to Tennessee. Maybe that affected her in some way. But to think that she walked all that way, and I don't know, it's hard to imagine, but I guess I don't even know if it's physically possible. This is one of those things where I talk about doesn't defy the laws of physics. It's possible. Maybe her walking from her home to the river does defy the laws of physics, that she would not physically have been able to do that. Something you have to think about. The purse was found down in this area. We might also be open to the idea that the story we've gotten about how the purse was found maybe is not exactly that. Maybe it was on the banks of the river. and had been there and wasn't technically in the current, in the river, and this fisherman just happened to grab it. I mean, what are the odds? I get it's certainly possible, but that sure is lucky. So we have to think about that. But that is where her purse was found, far away. In fact, if you find some articles, it'll even say that the purse was found 10 miles away from where she was living, and certainly do not believe that she walked 10 miles. So 10 miles, really from here down to there, and you can even see what it says here, 9.7 miles. So close. So it's hard to, I guess it could push you toward the idea that there was foul play involved and somebody threw in her purse later. I certainly can't argue with that. I'll be writing about my own ideas on Patreon this week and eventually patreon.com/unfoundpodcast. I have to admit that I've not come to a firm conclusion yet, but just giving you some things to think about. So very quickly to go over this all again, although I'm not going to type this all back up. She's living here. Chum's Discount Tobacco Store right in this area, only 0.7 miles away. She could have walked there and back easily within an hour, even in her condition, I believe. The Dover Crossing Road is where the card was used over a year later. The discount part to get discounts right here, which is 1.7 miles away. And then we have to go way down here to get to this area. Let me bring my right in here where her purse was found. Now, if you'd like to see before I go, you'd like to see a satellite view of this. It's Clarksville. It's a decent sized city. Would a woman such as Mary catch attention walking along the streets? Maybe. Depends on the time of day or night. What are people doing? But on the other hand, you see quite a bit of green. You see a lot of, Clarksville. You can see it up here, right here. A lot of buildings over here, but over here, a lot greener, a lot harder area to search. Something to think about. It's just not as clear-cut as maybe some other disappearances where people might have walked off and there's a lot of woods, very close. So there you go. That is the map analysis for the disappearance of Mary Cox. Please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. And if you could, even join this channel. See ya.